The presidential race has been sucking up most of the political oxygen, but between now and polling day, something arguably more important is taking place, involving literally tens of billions of euro of public money. Today came confirmation that the upcoming budget will not include one-off measures to address the cost of living. I'm still joined to discuss by Fianna Fáil's Shane Moynihan, Sinn Féin's Rose Conway-Walsh and Virgin Media's Gavin Riley. Remember, you can send us your comments. Will targeted measures be enough, or do all households still need some help with the cost of living? Simply scan the QR code or contact us via the WhatsApp number. The Taoiseach out today because of the Fine Gael thinking, Gavin, he's been talking about this, as has Micheál Martin and others in recent times. So what have they been saying specifically about what interventions there might be in the budget?
They won't be drawn down on what interventions there will be. It's more a case of ruling out what there won't be, and that effectively means no repeats of the one-off energy credits that we've seen for the last couple of Christmases. That effectively that is too much money out of a very finite budget to be sunk on one thing. And you have to bear in mind as well that there's been, years where the Fiscal Advisory Council has been accusing them of fiscal chicanery and all sorts of things where if you do a one-off thing 4 or 5 years in a row, at what point does it become, not one-off anymore? And they've kind of heeded that advice. They've decided they can't continue to do that. So as regards what they are doing, well, that's the bit that's kind of up for grabs in the next 5 weeks or so. And I actually think it was quite telling that Simon Harris, when he spoke yesterday, and Paschal Donohoe, when he spoke today, were slightly at odds about the framing of it. That Simon Harris was talking about, we still want to do things that help you with the cost of living, but they can't be one-off. They have to be some kind of structural changes. Whereas Paschal Donohoe, perhaps because he knows that there's many to slip between cup and lip in the next 4 weeks, was a little more reticent to sort of commit to anything. He said, well, no, cost of living means one-off stuff, the likes of which we've done in the past, cuts to excise for petrol and diesel, VAT on electricity. We just can't do that. On that note, just by the way, one thing which is quite telling, we might end up talking in the next few minutes about VAT and hospitality and how much of the budget scope that will be gobbling up, if that is a prospect. It is the case right now, I think, that VAT, the lower VAT on energy bills, is due to expire, if not in budget week, then sometime in next spring. So if you want to roll that over and if you want to give people continued assurance that their bill isn't going to go up by more, again, that is more of the finite tax pot for the budget eaten up already. So even if you park the hospitality VAT thing, or if you don't do it on day one, just maintaining cuts that are already there gobble up a huge amount of the resources that you just might not have otherwise.
Shane, what's the view in Fianna Fáil then as to how best support people who are struggling with the cost of living, be it the cost of putting food on the table, or those people watching this dreading turning the heating on at the end of the month?
So the most important thing is that the budget works for those people who need it most and that they feel it afterwards. And that's why I think targeted supports is where the government is very much focusing in terms of how we put that package together for people. I think the other thing that we need to ensure is that when we are trying to help families, that we give them certainty and saying that these are the permanent, sustainable changes that we're making to structures around energy or food or whatever that might be, to ensure that you have certainty around what those costs are going to be. Gavin's right, we have taken the steps to maintain the back up until October. Minister O'Brien has expressed support for continuing that. It costs about €85 million. We reduced the PSO on electricity too, but there's a piece we have to do in the medium term about bringing down the cost of electricity, ensuring that we continue to invest in renewables, as we have done for the last 20 years, increasing the amount of renewable energy by 5 times what it was in 2005, and also ensuring that the grid is fit for purpose, ensuring that we bring down that cost of energy in the short term. But I do think
investing in renewables, all of that investment over the last 20 years hasn't reduced the cost of electricity.
And we have to also point to the point that 2021, 2022, 2023 was a unique set of circumstances that was brought on by the war in Ukraine that put pressure on energy prices. Energy prices have come down from their peak in 2023. We're seeing some of that pushed through from suppliers across the country as well. Our job in government is to ensure that
they've come back nowhere near where they were. And actually, all energy economists will say, you know what, we had a bit of an aberration before the war in Ukraine, and what we have now is probably what it's going to be for the foreseeable future.
And that's where I think we have to do the structural piece in the medium term as well, right? We have to address the overall capacity of the grid. We have to make sure that energy is abundant, that it is in plentiful supply, and that's where investment in renewable energy is key to that.
Yeah, but how is that in the upcoming budget going to reduce the cost of electricity for people? You said the government has to look into reducing the cost of electricity by investing in renewables.
I've set out measures in the short term and the medium term. In the short term, it's about maintaining that reduction in VAT on electricity that's there, maintaining the reduction in the PSO levy that's there as well. But however, in the medium term, to make sure that we have a more abundant supply of electricity for those families in the future going forward, that is where we have to do investment in the grid. That is where we have to increase the amount of renewable electricity too. The two things work in tandem. But
Rose, I think what you're shaking your head.
The lack of certainty. I never think they were in government for so long, would you? I think there's a couple of things this government or this budget needs to do for people. First, it must end the rip-off. It must get the costs under control. and it must give supports to workers and families. So they're the three main things that this budget must do. I think people were further alarmed today to hear the noises from Simon Harris in that there wouldn't be once-off payments. We have to remember that there's about 500,000 people in arrears as it is with energy bills. Now, we're looking to further increases on that. We see Energia making their announcements today as well. Something has to be done. Workers and families have never worked so hard and struggled so much. So for the Taoiseach, I think it shows how out of touch he is, for the Taoiseach to come out today and say that there wouldn't be any once-off payments again. I mean, there's a complete denial that we're in the middle of this cost of living crisis. And when you talk about energy costs, obviously you have the knock-on impact on that as well. And you rightly say there should have been changes years ago in terms of the decoupling of gas prices from electricity. We have more electricity obviously coming from renewable energy, but that isn't getting to the households where it's supposed to get to. So I think there has to be a sharp focus on this. Now, I don't know what the government are at, but they need to realise that there's a tough winter for families, and households aren't going to be able to cope.
So what Rose doesn't seem to acknowledge is that from September more people will be eligible for the fuel allowance than ever before. That's a real distinct step that's being taken to deal. That's a real distinct step that is being taken to address fuel poverty for those people as well. We've more investment in retrofitting than ever before to bring down the cost of energy for households. To turn around and just give a glib slogan like "end the rip-off" without actually detailing what they do beyond a few kind of one-offs of helping workers, without actually giving detailed policy how they're going to do it. We haven't heard a single piece of this. This is the flamethrower approach to politics that Sinn Féin throw out all the time. Minister Ryan is very clear that energy affordability is a priority for him. There's a cross-governmental energy affordability task force put in place to address that, and real steps have been taken on this.
So we have a task force.
We also have more people going into fuel allowance from September, Rose.
Well, why are almost 500,000 people in arrears? Also, Sinn Féin present their alternative budget every year. That is fully costed, that is targeted to people, that will give people some relief in this budget. Now, you cannot cover everything, but will give some people relief in the cost of living crisis that they're in the middle of. So don't dismiss Sinn Féin.
So I would like to hear how Sinn Féin are going to address the advice that's given the Fiscal Advisory Council in terms of the spending growth that you would want is a much higher rate than anyone envisaged. And ultimately, the alternative budget you put before the people for the last 5 years
I'm not sure about Fianna Fáil or Fine Gael hiding behind the Fiscal Advisory Council. I mean,
I think the point I would make is that ultimately we do have to look at overall spending.
Name the year that the Irish Fiscal Advisory Council haven't criticised the government over their budget.
Their job is to be a critical advisor on government policy. I don't think anyone would want the Irish Fiscal Advisory Council.
Just name the year. Just tell me which year they haven't criticised government spending.
I don't think there's any Fiscal Advisory Council in the world that has not criticised government spending in any jurisdiction. Kieran, I think that's a pretty trite comparison to try and make, to be honest.
You think it's trite to point out that the government's own budgetary watchdog thinks that the government is profligate with and wasteful with
I think the focus of the government at this moment in time is to ensure that we drive targeted measures for people who need it in the economy right now, and that we make sure that those welfare is protected.
Kieran, I need to address what he's saying about the overall situation that we're in. We are billions ahead of expectation, but besides that, they brought in what was described by the ESRI as the most stupidest tax relief in recent times. That was the tax relief for landlords. That gave 160 million. Then if you're to look at the banks, the 5 billion profit that the banks made last year, the tax reliefs that are given to them, there's almost 500 million there. That would fill your gaps as well as everything else. Then you have the gold-plated pensions. So the figures that we present add up. This is about making political choices.
Whose pensions do you want to cut?
As to which people who get tax relief on huge pensions, while you have pensioners who are struggling on the ground, struggling for transport, struggling to make ends meet, struggling to put their heat on. You are making those choices.
We have more of those pensioners entering the fuel allowance than ever before. We've consistently increased the payment to pensioners in this country over the last 5 years as well. We have provided retrofit grants for older people to bring down their energy bills. I don't think it's necessarily fair to say that the government hasn't assisted pensioners over the last 5 years. I didn't say, I'm not going to put words in people's mouths, Rose, but I think it's disingenuous to suggest suggest that nothing has been done to assist these people over the last 5 years, that the government has stood by and not addressed the pressures that are on people. And I think the important thing that we have to say is, in terms of looking at our budgetary policy for the next 5 years, we have to be very targeted to make sure that the budget works for the people who need it, and it provides certainty in terms of the overall level of support they're getting.
The only certainty is that people will have a really, really tough winter under Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael.
I think over the next coming months, you will see that 5.9 billion has been set aside for addressing spending, protecting spending and core public services.
Do you think we should repeat the universal one-off energy credits again this year?
I do, yes. I think you have to. Because when you look at a situation where almost 500,000 people are in arrears, you have to.
Energy credits for people's holiday homes, energy credits for millionaires.
And I would say that, not for people's holiday homes, but I mean, you obviously need simplicity as well in terms of housing. No, you need to target it. But there needs to be the 3 energy credits, and that's what we have asked for. Again, 450 euro.
Not repeating the universal energy credits, but instead having targeted measures to help people who need help. That's the Fianna Fáil position.
No. But some of the measures you have to have universally, because it's just too complex to be able to divide them outright. So there will be some dead weight in those. But you have to find a way of easing the pressure that households are under at the moment. And that is what we are seeking to do. That's what we sought to do last year. There hasn't been an improvement in the cost of living crisis. And for those reasons, you need a cost of living package. And that's why I'm astounded that the government have ruled that out. It is like that the reality this year is somehow different than last year. And you prefer to give it to the bankers, you prefer to give it to big landlords.
We stepped in at a very unique spike in the cost of living crisis after the Ukraine war, and we made quick measures to assist people as quickly as we could. We now have to take a long-term structural approach to assisting those people and to making sure that they have this. And we have to take the target approach. What Rose has just described there in terms of the universal approach to energy credits is exactly what we did in a quick response to a very quick crisis that mushroomed. And we were criticised by Sinn Féin at the time for doing that. So which is it? And now she says we should target, which is exactly what I said at the top of the speech, that we should target and support people. So what exactly is the difference here?
Energy is hugely important, but so is childcare, and how that is causing huge problems for people. Your government promised that within 100 days you would have a childcare provision that would show that childcare would be reduced to €200 a month. You haven't done that. The Taoiseach was asked about it again the other day, and he said, you don't even know what's going to be in it. So you've made all these promises. You also promised to carers that you would get rid of the means test. You haven't done that. What is your answer to those people, to people who are suffering because of the cost of childcare, to the carers where the means test hasn't been...
You look perplexed over there. Gavin.
You haven't kept your promises. You got elected on promises and you haven't kept them.
I was kind of perplexed as to how you do those things without having done a budget, but that's a question for 4 weeks' time. There's a massive elephant in the room here, which is that we don't know how much money there is in the budget to play with. We had, some economic statements, and we've had strategic programme updates and all the different names they have now. The projections that were done in April, which is what the budget was designed on so far, presumed no tariffs on exports to the United States. 10 days after that projection was done, they put in 10% tariffs, then they went to 25%, now they're back at 15%. That apparently includes pharmaceuticals, but at some point in the future, it may not include pharmaceuticals. So the figures that we have, $1.5 billion for tax cuts and $6 billion for everyday increases in spending, which can go some way to being a cost of living package, by the way, it was predicated on, well, the economy's going to be going grand because there's no tariffs. Now there are tariffs, and we know that that's going to pinch the amount of money that's available. And it's wild that the budget is 4 weeks from today, or 5 weeks from today. Is it 4 weeks? What number? Yeah, it's 4 weeks from today. Apologies, live television. And we genuinely don't know how much money is available. And that's mad. And it means that when you're framing alternative budgets, it'll be done on the basis of we've got this much fiscal space or this much money that's available for tax measures or spending increases. We don't know. So all of this is hypothetical. We don't know if there's money for cost of living packages.
Shane, are we going to know before budget day, or will all be revealed? Is this like the good old days when money was found out in the back of the couch? So everything is revealed on the day itself.
I think, in fairness to the Minister of Finance, Minister for Public Expenditure, we are in a rapidly changing environment at the moment. Details of these tariffs are constantly coming through all the time, and the geopolitical context is changing. I think the assumptions that are being set out among the economic growth will be revealed as part of the overall budget package, but this is part of the overall analysis.
And does the changed reality and the worsening reality compared to the spring economic economic statement, certainly, which was in the context of 0% tariff. That means that the VAT, the sweetheart deal for the hospitality industry, that's gone, certainly, isn't it?
Well, that was and a lot of the commitments that Rose alluded to, and that commitment they're in the lifetime of the programme for government. They weren't things that we said we'd do inside the first year. We have to make choices about exactly what we're going to do. I think we have to look at things in the round. There are certainly pressures on businesses, but it comes back to the point I made at the top of the programme. How do we make permanent, sustainable supports for the people and businesses who need them, and how will that provide the most impact for the people who need to feel it?
So it's gone. It's gone for budget 2026. Anyway.
All items are being discussed between the parties, as is the want of the coalition government, to ensure that we deliver on our programme for government commitments, but also in a responsible way, and that we do right by the country ultimately.
And in the meantime, you have 1 in 5 children in poverty, and you have 5,000 children homeless.
Child poverty will be focused in this budget, as will investment in housing.
As Gavin says, 4 weeks today until budget 2026, so we shall be discussing plenty more between now and then.